A bed is a machine. We just stop noticing it. It holds your unconscious body for about a third of your life. It keeps you off the cold floor, away from insects, lifted out of the damp, wrapped in warmth you did not have to earn. And you trust it so completely that you lie down on it, close your eyes, and stop defending yourself for 8 hours straight. For most of human history, that level of trust was a luxury almost nobody had. Tonight, you will lie down without a single thought. No planning, no risk. The room is already warm. The surface is already soft. The door is already locked. Sleep is just something you do when you are tired. Now, take all of that away. Remove the mattress. Remove the frame that lifts you off the ground. Remove the heating that keeps the room at one steady temperature all night. Remove the locked door, the glass in the windows, the idea that the floor is clean, and the quiet certainty that nothing will come close while you are unconscious.
What is left is the real problem, and it is older than almost everything else people have ever had to figure out. Where do you put your body when it stops working for the day? Because sleep was never just rest. Sleep was the most defenseless thing a person did all day, and doing it in the wrong place could cost you. Start with the ground itself. The floor is not neutral. The earth is patient, and it is always pulling heat out of anything warmer than it. Lie directly on cold ground for one night, and you learn this fast. The cold does not come from the air around you. It rises up through your back and quietly drains you from below. You can have a fire at your feet and still shiver because the ground beneath you is taking more than the flame is giving. This is the first hidden mechanism behind the bed. Long before anyone wanted softness, they wanted separation. Getting up off the earth, even by a few inches, was not about comfort. It was about keeping the warmth your own body had made. So the first beds were not built for sleep. They were built against the ground. A pile of dry leaves, a heap of straw, bracken, reeds, dried grass, moss, a layer of animal skin over the top. None of it was decoration. Every layer was insulation, holding a thin pocket of warm air between a person and the cold floor. And here is the detail that changes the whole picture. That pile was alive.
Warm bedding made of plant matter and animal hide is an invitation. Insects move in. Small creatures nest in it. It holds moisture and mildew. So in many places, the bedding was not permanent at all. It was thrown out and replaced again and again because a warm bed and a clean bed were quietly at war with each other. The word we still use, make the bed, is older than the mattress. People literally made it from scratch out of whatever the season offered. Now add the next problem. You are off the cold floor, but you are still exposed. In the open or in a simple shelter, the night belongs to things you cannot see. Vision fails after sunset, so sound takes over, and sound is a poor guard. A person sleeping alone in the dark is making a bet. So for most of human history, people did not make that bed alone.
They slept crowded together, not because it was pleasant, because it worked. In a cold shelter, an entire household, adults, children, the elderly, packed into one small space to share heat. To us, this sounds uncomfortable, even off-putting. No private room, no quiet, no space of your own, just people giving off warmth in the dark. But warmth was the whole point. A group in one room was easier to keep alive and far harder to surprise than a person alone. This sounds strange to a modern person because we treat sleep as private. A door, a separate room, a separate bed. But the private bedroom is recent. For most of the past, going to sleep was a shared act, and being alone in the dark was the unusual, slightly dangerous version. Then there is the part almost everyone gets wrong about the night itself. We imagine people simply laid down at dark and slept straight through until morning, the way we try to. But there is good evidence that in many places, before artificial light filled the evening, sleep came in two pieces.
People went down not long after dark. They slept for a few hours. Then, somewhere in the middle of the long night, they woke. Not in a panic, just naturally, and stayed awake for an hour or more. They tended the fire, they talked quietly, they prayed, thought, checked on children,
moved closer to the warmth, and then they went back down for a second sleep until the light returned. The darkness was so long that one unbroken night of sleep would have been almost too much to fill. The night had a structure, and people lived inside it. Now, compare that to today. We treat waking up at 3 a.m. as a failure, a sign that something is wrong. For a long stretch of human experience, it may simply have been the seam in the middle of the night, the quiet hour the dark was built around. Keep going, because the small details are where this gets sharp.
Think about your head. We sleep with our heads on something soft, and we never think about why. But a soft pillow against the floor is a luxury. In several cultures, the solution was the opposite of soft: a wooden or stone headrest, a small curved stand that held the head up off the ground. It looks brutal to us. It was practical. It kept the head clear of the cold floor, away from the dirt and the insects. And in some places, it protected elaborate hairstyles that took hours to build and were not going to be redone every morning. A hard headrest was not a hardship. It was a tool. Think about the fire.
In a cold shelter, the fire is the warmest thing in the world and the most dangerous thing in the room, both at once. Sleep too far from it, and the cold wins. Build it too high or leave it unwatched, and you risk the whole shelter. So sleep and fire had to negotiate all night. Someone, or the warm stones near the embers, had to keep the heat alive without letting it become a threat. The fire did not care that everyone was exhausted. It still had to be managed. Think about timing. With no clock and no electric light, you did not choose your bedtime. The light chose it for you. The sun set, the usable day ended, and lying down was simply what came next. Sunset was not a mood. It was the close of business. And waking was just as automatic. The light returned, the cold loosened, and the body that had been hiding from the dark came back online. And think about what all of this required from the people doing it.
It is easy to picture the past as people simply enduring discomfort because they did not know better. That is the wrong picture. Building a sleeping place was skilled work. You had to read the ground for damp and for drafts. You had to know which plants made dry, warm bedding and which rotted fast or drew pests. You had to position the sleeping area against the wind, near enough to the fire, away from where water would run if it rained. You had to time the gathering of fresh bedding to the season. Every night that ended in real rest was the result of small, accurate decisions made earlier in the day. That is the quiet truth under all of it. A good night's sleep was not given. It was assembled, which brings us back to the object you will use tonight without a single thought.
The modern bed is not really one invention. It is a stack of solved problems. The frame solves the cold ground. The mattress solves the hard surface. Central heating solves the fire that had to be watched. The locked door and the walls solve the exposure that once made sleeping alone a gamble. The clock and the light bulb let you choose when to sleep instead of obeying the sun. Every part of it replaces a job that someone somewhere used to do by hand every single evening just to survive the night safely.
We did not just make sleep more comfortable. We made it thoughtless. We turned the most defenseless hours of human life into something so safe that we can waste them scrolling. So tonight, when you lie down, you do not need to feel guilty about how easy it is. Just notice it for a second. You are about to do the most vulnerable thing a person does. Switch yourself off in the dark, and you can do it without fear, without planning, without keeping one ear open for the fire or the door. That is not normal. For almost everyone who ever lived, that kind of safe, simple, unguarded sleep would have looked like a small miracle. You are not just going to bed. You are lying down on top of thousands of years of people who finally solved the dark.